seen that the Department of Homeland Security was apparently reviewing a reality TV show pitch where
Mm-hmm.
immigrants would compete for American citizenship. This is according to a spokesperson who said in a statement to CNN that the show in question is in the very beginning stages of the vetting process and that it has not, received approval or denial by the staff.
Mm-hmm.
So this is coming from someone named Rob Worsoff, who is a Canadian immigrant himself, says
Mm-hmm.
that he also has credits including Duck Dynasty and The Biggest Loser. Said that he has pitched the idea as far back as the Obama administration,
Mm-hmm.
but hasn't got any bites yet, and said that he's had 3 conversations with the current DHS and about the pitch and that they have, quote, they have gone far. But said that Secretary Kristi Noem has not been involved in any of the discussions. She came out in a Senate hearing just this week, said that there's actually no validity to this story, said that she has no knowledge of any reality TV show. And that's kind of where the facts of the matter stand right now. So we do have a DHS spokesperson who came out and did acknowledge that there was talks about this. And you also have this TV producer who's saying that, yes, I've had multiple conversations with people at DHS. And then we have Kristi Noem talking about how this has never really happened. I don't really know what's going on here. So conflicting information even from within DHS here. So I guess it really comes down to who do you believe, right?
Yeah.
So Natalie, what are your thoughts as you heard this story come across the wire and, what you're thinking now after you hear the kind of back and forth that we're hearing from both sides?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing some comments here from people, and this one person says there's so much to deal with, it's overwhelming, and another person just mentioned, this is a distraction story. Dawn, keep, and here's what I'll say to that, because this does fit with what I was going to talk about from my perspective.
Yeah,
it is a distraction, but it's distracting in the sense that it's so abhorrent what they're proposing and what they're trying to do and what they've continued to do, because I don't believe for a second that she has no idea, first of all. But what I think this administration is excellent at doing is overstimulating, overwhelming us with information, but putting out these kernels of things so we become softer to the ideas and the policies that they do want to implement that are going to be very, very harmful. So yes, this is giving like Hunger Games energy. This reminds me, it sort of harkened back to the era of time where, Black and brown people were sort of put out as spectacle for white people's enjoyment. I mean, you have this whole nation built on genocide and enslavement. To me, this really fits in with that sort of philosophical framework of how you look at those people, those bodies, and how it is for entertainment. Whether or not this comes into fruition, it actually doesn't matter. What I'm concerned about, once again, is how we're framing a narrative around who is worthy and unworthy to be in this country and who can pass. I don't think you would see this in another time. Of course, maybe they've been pitching this, but no outlet would have picked this up because it wasn't something that was actually possibly going to transpire. But now that Trump has control of the mainstream media and, of course, his inside cabinet, they all want to see this kind of policy be pushed forward where people have to basically kiss the ring and beg to enter this country. And for what? For what at this point? So I'm very concerned about the sentiment that surrounds this narrative that's being pushed out everywhere. What about you?
I mean, it feels like it's just I want to just go back to what we know about the story really quick. Kristi Noem says that she's never heard anything about this. Maybe that is true. Let's just say, I want to take that at face value for a second. Maybe she's never heard anything about this. But there were people in her department who did acknowledge to having conversations with this person. And that they had multiple conversations with this person. So maybe if the Secretary of Homeland Security did not have these conversations directly, people within her department were. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're the head of the department, you are also responsible for what's happening within your department. So I don't really want to hear anything about, I didn't have these, conversations directly. Well, people underneath you did. Okay, so you have to take accountability for that. Kind of going along these lines, though, it's not surprising to me because one, as that was stated in the article, in the CNN article, it hadn't been denied yet. So maybe they haven't approved it. but they also haven't
Right.
denied it. So they are acknowledging that they were considering it. Okay, so this does fall right into the ideas of what we know about the Trump administration this time around, even more so than the first time around, which is the continual attempt to try to dehumanize certain classes of people, certain groups of people.
Yeah.
And I believe that it is just a pretext for them to go even further. They want
Bingo.
to continue to push as much as they possibly can the bounds of what is legal, of
Yeah.
what is the societal norms, and see what they can get away with. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yes, to some degree, this might feel like a distraction story, but to me, this feels more than like a distraction story. This feels like, how can we continue to push this certain group of people further into the boundaries of society? And if people don't react negatively to it, if people don't get upset about it, then what
Yeah.
more can we do? You know,
That's
I think it's in these moments that we have to be even more boisterous, even more like pushing back against these kind of things, because what we're trying to see right now is the continual dehumanization of immigrants coming to America, especially immigrants who are not white.
That's right. And to piggyback off of that, I 100% agree. And I think that's why this one just really like stuck with me, because I think what they're doing is it's almost like A/B testing, where they're putting things out and seeing how does the messaging go over. And this didn't do well, right? People did come back and say, this is awful, this is gross, this is grotesque. And so I think, to your point, once again, he's manipulating and using mainstream media to serve his purpose, which is to see what he and his cronies, his fascist regime, can get away with. And Don, you also raise a good question. Who would sponsor such a thing? That's, I think, where this could fall down for him, because what advertiser would want to be associated with this show? So here's my other thought on that.
I mean, probably the same ones who would advertise anything going on with the Daily Wire. You know, I'm sure they could find 2 or 3 businesses.
I'm sure they could, but I think if you're talking about network television, I think it's not going to be as simple as a few sponsors, because of how how cable advertising actually works. And I don't know if a lot of advertisers would actually be on board with this, but I think this, to me, would be a way for him to try to say, Trump to try to say, well, this is why we need state-sponsored media, so to speak, because I think I could see in a different world, God, they would want the taxpayer to pay to have this out on television and see, once again,
Sesame Street and give us this instead.
Exactly.
Right?
And so I think we're underestimating them, and I think we've got to stop doing that, not individually, but on the collective. Like, these are terrible people, and they have no morals or scruples. And so, of course, they're going to find a way to get us to somehow fund this. It just wouldn't surprise me, but I do think they were doing this as sort of a test, so to speak.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I think it kind of like perfectly lends us into our next story as well, because it feels like what we are seeing right now is just the continual pushing of the norms, pushing of the bounds.
Yes.
You know, like, what can this administration get away with? They're going to continually try to like push that envelope. We've been seeing that over the first 3 months here, 4 months.
Yes.
I've
God, has it only been that long?